Welcome back to HaryPhamDev channel. My name is Harry. In the previous videos, we succeed to set up a basic chatbot which can handle text messages, images, and attachment files. We already created a Facebook page, a Facebook app, and a Heroku server. These are essential things to make our chatbot working. If you don't know about the previous videos, I put the link to those videos at the description. Go ahead and watch them, then start this video. Now, let's take a look at what we're gonna do in this video. We will add a Get Started button for the chatbot, and then whenever a customer taps this button, we will send back a welcome message. We also set up a persistent menu to navigate at any time during the conversation. But before starting this video, if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon so that you get instant notifications of my video uploads. To start, the first thing we need to do is search for Facebook documentation. Open a new tab, then Google with these keywords, Facebook Messenger Get Started button. We will choose the first result from the Facebook developer page. If you can't find this page, don't worry, I will put the link to this topic at the description. According to this document, a Get Started button shows up at the first time a customer sends a message to your Facebook page. When the customers tap the Get Started button, Facebook Messenger will notify your webhook with the postback event, which we supplied at the setup webhook session in the previous video. This topic doesn't show us how to set up a Get Started button. We need to find the Facebook APIs to add this button for our chatbot. On the left sidebar, go into Facebook Messenger Profile API. This is the Facebook API we need. By using this API, we can set up the profile properties like Get Started button and the persistent menu. After you have set up the Messenger profile, for example, the Get Started button, in case you change your mind, you want to get rid of this button, you can find the document right below. Go back to our Node.js server. Now we're gonna create a view, then call the Facebook API to set up the Get Started button. In the /c directory, then views, open the homepage.ejs. Let's make a form to submit this feature to Facebook. First, I create a new div. Right below the video I embed. Then a p-tag, a paragraph for the title, set up the Get Started button and the persistent menu. In order to send a request to the server, we need to use a HTML form tag. The action attribute is a link on our server. Create a new one. Let's name it with a slash and set up. With the method attribute, I use the post method. To finish, we need to add a button with the type submit and the button name set up. Press Ctrl S to save changes. Because we are using the Node-mon package to run the server, so every time we have changes, the server will automatically restart. Refresh the homepage. Now we have a setup button at the bottom. If I click on this button, we will see an error like this. We can't do the post method with the route setup. To solve this problem, we must define the setup route inside our server. To do that, go back to Visual Studio, then open the route directory, then the web.js. Because we use a post method, so right here, I use the expect router with the post method, router.post, then the route name. Next is the controller with its function to handle this request. We will create the handle setup info later. To create a new function, open the homepage controller, then scroll to the button. With JavaScript, remember to always export the variables first. By exporting variables, we can use them anywhere we want. Let handle setup info equal an error function. We need to input parameter, request, and response. We need to call the Facebook API inside the function in order to set up the Get Started button. If everything is working fine, we will return a text message, setup done. Press Ctrl S and go back to the browser. Refresh the page and click on the Submit button again. Something must be wrong here. Let's check our web router. I have a typo here. Try again. This time it's working. We still haven't used the Facebook API yet. Let's do this part. First, copy this example request. This function uses a request package to send a HTTP request to the Facebook server. The only thing we will change here is I use a promise. By using a promise, we ensure that our request will be sent to the Facebook server. We use a try and catch function to handle any exception we may have. Then move this plug code into the try function. While doing a process to call an API outside the Node.js server, a good practice is using JavaScript function console.log to see the response from the server. In this case, it's the Facebook server. We use the console.log, a text to let us know what we are doing here. And beside is the response from the Facebook server. Next, we need to change the API endpoint, this URL, to the Get Started button. Copy this request URL, then go back to our project. Update this URL. We no need to provide a page asset token on the URL because we already do that below the QS query string parameter. The next thing we will do is to update the request body variable. We need to send to Facebook the structure of our Get Started button. To find out the structure of the Get Started button, go back to the Facebook documentation. Then click on this option to see more information about this button. Here we are. This is exactly what we need, a Get Started button format. Copy this object, then update our project. A Get Started button always needs a postback name because when this button is tapped, the Messenger platform will send a message postback event to your webhook with the payload name you set here. This is API. It also helps us to set up the persistent menu. So let's do that part as well. Go back to Facebook documentation. find the position menu section. At the left side, right below the Get Started button format, whenever you choose an option in the position menu, if you want to open it in a new tab, we will use the type is web URL instead of using a postback type. The title here is the menu option. If you're stuck with the chatbot, you can find the final source code at my GitHub, github.com/HaryPhamDev. Now it's time to test this API. Press Ctrl S to save changes. Then reload our page. Scroll to the end and hit the setup button. Our setting up is working. Let's see what we have in the terminal. I guess our setup isn't working because I see an error here. Unpaged asset token needs to be used in this situation. The reason we have this error because we haven't created a .env file yet, a file to store environment variables. To solve this problem, let's deploy this project to Heroku. Git add all files, git commit your message, then finally git push Heroku master. On Heroku, our project is working because we also did the step setting up the environment variables. Now let's reload our Heroku page, then scroll to the end, hit the setup button. We see a message return setup done. Let's check the response message from Facebook. Because we are using a server online, so to see our logs, let's use this command, Heroku logs --tail. There are a lot of things about a HTTP request, but we don't have any error message here. It means that we succeed to set up the position menu and the Get Started button. Open your Facebook account and check out the Facebook page. First, we need to refresh this page to make sure everything is updated. Click the Edit button, then test a button. You can see now we have a menu here, our position menu. For me, these are two options. One to visit my YouTube channel, and the other is my GitHub page. We haven't seen a Get Started button yet. Is there anything wrong with our setup? To make the Get Started button shows up, delete this conversation and try again. The Get Started button only shows once. At the first time we had a conversation with a Facebook page. Because I already sent messages to this page before, so this button won't show up. This time we will have a Get Started button. You must tap this button before you can start to send messages to this page. The next thing we will do is I want whenever a customer taps the Get Started button, we will send a relay message back. Until now, there is nothing to show after we tap the Get Started button. To do that, first we need to update the function to handle our Spotlight button. Add a condition here with the Get Started button post back. Then make a new response you want to send. In this video, we succeed in setting up the Get Started button and the position menu. If you have any errors while doing this video or need some help, let me know by comment below this video. Have a good day and see you guys in the next videos.